Welcome to this IDnext Lunchbreak. Today we are going to talk about Modernize Legacy IAM. My name is Robert Gaskamp, founder of IDnext Platform, and would like to welcome you for this IDnext Lunchbreak. For those who doesn't know IDnext yet, IDnext Platform founded almost more than 10 years ago, where our main mission is about sharing knowledge. And the things that we are doing is to bring experts and professionals together in the world of digital identity. And a lot of things that we do is also having these IDnext lunch breaks. Means that we have one team, one guest, and also interesting content. The only thing that you need to arrange is your own lunch. Just some background about IDnext. So IDnext is an open independent platform. We are a not-for-profit organization. And our main mission is to try to contribute to our society on different matters. We also support and facilitate innovative approaches. And we, with the experts that we have within the community, which consists of IT, business, and also marketeers, we would like to create awareness about digital identity on the different topics that currently are there. So IDnext shows, promotes, insights, and share. So let's go to the session of today, and would like to introduce Roy Peters. Roy Peters is the Senior Strategic Account Executive of Ping Identity, having held various roles within various cybersecurity companies. And also, it's according to your biography, Roy, you are a jack of all trades in the cybersecurity landscape. Most recently, you joined Ping Identity to work with your clients on their identity posture, both for the employees and their customers. And also, Roy believes that a solid grasp of managing identities is the key to frictionless user experience without compromising on security. So Roy is going to tell us more about Modernize Legacy IAM. So Roy, the floor is yours.
All right, thank you very much for the introduction. My name is Roy Peters. I'm the account executive for Ping Identity for Benelux and Nordics. Mostly focused on the Benelux, but do have a couple of customers in the Nordics as well. And basically, I've done a lot of things. I've been in security for a long time. I've done SIEM, I've done application coding, the security. I've done several things, mobile device management as well. But I truly believe that identity management or access management is one of the true enablers in the security industry instead of a cost or a burden. Since if you do that well, you can increase security by providing a frictionless user experience. So that is a delight to a lot of users. And that is actually what drives me when I sell our platform to a customer. I definitely make sure that they implement it the correct way. So it is a fantastic experience for users as well. What I want to talk about today is how to modernize legacy IAM and how that leads to operational efficiency and can actually be the basis for zero trust. It is by no means a prophecy or a single truth. It is just the way that we, from mostly I probably, look at the world today, and there's definitely some facts that can be used to establish the basis for this. So first off, what is legacy IAM? And what do we mean with legacy IAM? So what we often see is traditionally built some years ago, many years ago, and it is always a bit of a Frankenstein monster. It's built on premise. It's highly customized or even custom developed, custom built. Hence limited in functionality. I've spoken to a lot of customers that have just implemented as a reverse proxy and don't use any other functionality that could be provided. It leads to scaling issues, performance issues as the customer grows in size. Also, it lacks the capability for self-service password resets. which leads to a whole slurry of other problems, downtime, resources, stuff like that. A lot of cost as well. It leads to shadow IT, people circumventing the IAM systems for certain applications. There's also a risk of outage, and it's very costly to maintain. So that is typically the key components. If you look at an IAM platform and it takes, let's say, 3 or more of these boxes, it's definitely called a legacy IAM. So there are a lot of challenges with legacy IAM. It's categorized into 3 main areas. First of all, this web.
Just one,
Yeah,
Roy,
sure.
one question. Are you sharing your screen? I'm not sure because
I am actually, but
okay, just to.
let me see because hold on.
Yeah, sure.
Stop somehow. Oh, that's probably because you over. Okay.
Yeah, I think I did. So
Yeah. Okay. Let me go back then.
sure. Yeah, there it is. Great.
There you go. So this was the first slide that I was just speaking to.
Okay.
So in 3 areas, so web access management being the first one, a lot of companies struggle with protecting resources in the cloud, or it's a very disparate way of doing things. So single sign-on to cloud applications is something that a lot of companies struggle with. Also because the legacy IAM systems have trouble securing REST APIs. Something that's built proprietary or is heavily customized is usually not compatible with web services or standards. Usually, there's also no support for partner or customer access. So in the area of web access management, those are the 3 top challenges. In the area of the directory, we see that a lot of legacy IAM systems lack the ability to add more application users without causing downtime and latency issues. And those problems or that difficulty increases with scale. It's lacking support for modern applications. Similar to the web APIs, there's very limited REST functionality and SCIM support. And it almost 100% of the time, it lacks native security features. This is an older figure. I think the new was even over 3.84 million. I think everybody is aware of the Ponemon studies. Otherwise, feel free to look it up. But the average cost of a data breach is very high. Then the third sector being multi-factor authentication. Implementing MFA in a legacy manner will never have context. So it's always MFA for all users, for all devices, always. Which leads to reduced productivity, very poor user experience, very frictionful or a lot of friction in the authentication, which ultimately leads to a lot of support tickets. And again, there's very little integration points, so it is very difficult to add multi-factor authentication possibilities for customers and partners as well. And then the point that I haven't mentioned yet is that the legacy IAM systems come with a high admin and high hardware costs because it's proprietary and it's very, very infrastructure heavy. So we can pretty much conclude that legacy IAM was not built for and is no longer suitable for hybrid IT environments because legacy IAM cannot extend to new technology built on modern standards like SAML, OpenID Connect, or FIDO or SCIM. We see a lot of disjointed admin between environments. So there's a single console for the directory admin. There's a single console for the ping federate or the federation admin. So you have all these different log-on consoles. And because of the hard-coded proprietary languages, it has to some extent a certain vendor lock-in or lack of support for open standards, so you can only pick and choose some vendors. So maybe not a single vendor login, but at least it decreases your scope of vendors to choose from. So basically what we're saying, it is very much time for change. What does a modern IAM system mean? What do we think that a modern IAM system should be? It should basically be a platform that allows any user to access from any device and any location a application or a web service in cloud, making use of any directory. So it is a very broad definition, but basically it means that it should be a very modern way of looking at the current environment, current business environment, where people work from different areas, work from remote or work abroad, use multiple devices, have multiple applications, and even multiple user repositories. As compared to a legacy IAM platform, which would typically have fragmented identities, we would now move to a more orchestrated identity, so a user journey mapped out, and what happens if a user triggers this, then this should happen or that should happen, versus you need to re-log in or re-authenticate and go do everything again. That also means that a legacy IAM comes with a lot of passwords or multiple authentications, where in a modern identity platform, you could go as far as complete passwordless. I did do a presentation on that during the IDnext event itself. But basically, it is possible to, it's possible to go even usernameless and passwordless. Then the proprietary standards should be replaced with open standards. On-premise is, also pretty much in the past, although it seems to be coming back, I heard lately, but it should at least be hybrid or support multi-cloud. Manual onboarding and manual password resets, that is also something of the past. There is plenty of ways to do self-service and use APIs for automation. And the policy-based legacy IAM is also something that we can now use risk and intelligence-based decisions for by using or leveraging context. So what does a modern IAM platform look like? Of course, it should be flexible, meaning it should be cloud ready. I'm not saying it should be cloud native. I'm not saying it should be 100% pure SaaS. I'm just saying it should be cloud ready and should really support a hybrid environment, if nothing else. It should be DevOps ready, so support containerized implementation. It should have the possibility to easily onboard new applications, and it should be integration ready. If a platform supports multiple connectors out of the box, it is so much easier to implement and so much more flexible to support across the board. And it should be omni-channel, of course, because we do use multiple devices and should have mobile authentication. It should have desktop authentication. It should have web authentication. It should be simple and out of the box, very lightweight in infrastructure. It should provide frictionless user experience, which I'm pretty fond of. It should be standards-based, and it should also support legacy applications because, let's face it, we are not doing away with legacy applications overnight. Legacy applications sometimes are needed or are still there, are business critical, and not every application can be SaaSified. Of course, in the current environment, performance and scale is of the utmost importance. It should be able to support millions of users. It should support billions of transactions at mission critical speed, and it should evolve beyond human identity. So we have operations of technology, we have Internet of Things, stuff like that. Definitely, we can pretty much support way beyond identities, human identities. And like I said, it should support security and compliance out of the box. So it should move beyond the identity as a parameter, pave or start the premise of, or be at the heart of zero trust way of thinking. And it should empower users by leveraging their own profile, by doing self-service, which makes it easier to maintain regular upkeep. This in entirety will lead to operational efficiency. There's no argument about it. To quantify that, that's always difficult and will depend from organization to organization. But looking at how it increases operational efficiency, because of lightweight deployment, there's less infrastructure to manage, leading to cost savings. Supporting the latest open standards means a lower total cost of ownership. If it's DevOps ready, we can do faster app deployment and it's faster time into value. With the self-service password reset, we will have less downtime and it will require less resources. With passwordless authentication, it's a fantastic user experience, which will lead to increased productivity because it just takes less time to log on. Of course, highly scalable, highly performant means increase in productivity and lower total cost of ownership. With regular upkeep improvements, we can improve security posture and remain compliant. And by adding fraud and risk, and by that I mean bot detection and credential stuffing, detecting suspicious devices, we will again improve security posture. And lastly, it will allow for adaptive authentication. And adaptive authentication leads to improved productivity and forms the basis for zero trust. So I hope this is understood. If someone disagrees, feel free to butt in and make a comment here. But I think this is pretty much self-explanatory. So having done that operational efficiency framework, basically the bridge for zero trust has now been established as well. So moving a bit into zero trust, basically zero trust, it's a very hype term. A lot has been said about it. A lot of people have made claims about it. A lot of people have presented on it. There's a lot of white papers and documentation on it. And it's very much a conceptual way of thinking. That's how I would frame it. It's caused by influential enterprise trends. So we've seen that users have become more hybrid. They're not static users anymore in the office working 9 to 5. They work remote, they work from abroad, they work at different hours. We use multiple devices. It's not just the desktop that sits and remains at the office any longer. We have mobile devices, we have laptops, we have tablets. We have multiple applications or multiple web servers that can be accessed or will be hosted in the cloud or maintained in the cloud. The Internet of Things definitely has spurred things on, and the open APIs to add applications or even OT in that matter also have caused that way of thinking. So basically all these influential trends have led to, hey, listen, we need to change how we look at things. We need to change how we look at trust. And basically the shift has been to shift from where you are to who you are. So in the past, it used to be network-based, persistent, and kind of, if you're on the office network, it's automatically, implicitly trusted. But now we're moving beyond that parameter. We're moving beyond the office network, and we replace implicit trust with identity-centric and and context-based trust, where we adapt a way of thinking with continuous re-authentication, reauthorization. So that's kind of the way of thinking. So the zero trust principle in itself is that we should assume that every network, be it private or public, is hostile. Assume that any network will have external or internal threats, and assume that you have been breached. And I think most of the people understand that principle. But where a lot of vendors claim to solve zero trust, I think that is not as simple as that. So it is a way of thinking. It's a way of looking at your security posture. And if you assume that you have been breached, you can start mitigating. So how do we determine trust and authenticity today? It should require that every user, every identity is verified, that every device has been checked for suspicion or what's the name again? The jailbreak or at least compromise. Let's put it that way. What is the network that we're on? And then look at the context. Do we know this device? Do we know this user? Have they all been registered? Is that a combination that we see often? And what are the risk indicators? So do we know from which IP or network a user is logging in? And we start doing that circle of continuous assessment, continuous re-authentication, continuous reauthorization. And then now we come back to a orchestration functionality in a modern IAM platform. If you know that you will re-authenticate or check during the user session, you need to have a way to orchestrate or at least draw out the user journey. What happens at a certain event? So if we check a device and we see that device posture has changed, it is now being accessed at a non-normal time, or it is now being compromised. We see there is a change. What happens next? And it's much easier to orchestrate that, to draw out the next steps instead of enforcing rules or policies on that. And then we can decide to which data, to which application, to which services, to which network a user and a device will be authorized. So that's basically the zero trust principle in a user journey. Continuously check, use context, use risk signals to keep checking the validity of the user or the identity. In the use cases, that looks pretty much like this. So a user or an identity logs in, we verify that the user is who he or she claims that he or she is. Even would go as far or could go as far as proving it is a real human person by checking their identity card or passport. So we can actually use verification for that. We see in the like the sharing applications, the Uber, for instance, or Go sharing, or stuff that makes use of the electrical sharing facilities. They do a check. Banking instances do checks on your credentials, on your ID card, and stuff like that. So that is something that we can do. Doesn't have to be, but it's layered in terms of how much you want to verify or how strong you want to do your verification. Of course, we need to validate device trust as well. Is the device compliant with all our policies and all requirements? Make sure we manage that. So register the user, onboard and pair the device, establish a connection between that device trust and the user. Then enforce single sign-on and multi-factor authentication by using adaptive authentication. You can make sure that it gets re-authenticated again and again and again. And we also will do the continuous authorization or reauthorization by leveraging risk and fraud signals. Again, an orchestration platform will make sure that all of this happens in a flow that is frictionless, and that the user makes it easy for a user to go through without any interruptions or frictions. Now, from a zero trust reference architecture perspective, look at a typical user journey moving from logging in on the one hand side to accessing the data or services on the other side. So, and in the middle, it's the IAM platform. Typically on the left-hand side, you see the identity and device registration, user provisioning, which is typically something that a IGA partner, identity governance and administration partner, would take care of. They would provision the identities into a user repository, and then access management takes over. So we do the adaptive authentication by making use of the verification possibilities, looking up the user in the data repository and authenticating them through MFA using risk signals. So we look at the risk profile by looking at user entity behavior analysis. We look at network detection issues. We look at IP reputation from that network, and we look at impossible travel, stuff like that. We can integrate multiple sources of intelligence there, and then align that to the sources or the attributes that are being used for the authentication and the authorization. And as soon as we establish that authentication and we authorize into a certain application or service, we can actually determine the level of authorization needed. So we look at what data, and perhaps we want to enforce additional MFA for accessing certain data, or we keep monitoring that a user doesn't do anything that he or she isn't supposed to do. If for some reason they move in a direction that they're doing stuff that is not allowed or not compliant with what we would suspect, then we can orchestrate a way to enforce new authentication or block access at all, which leads to the zero trust network access way of thinking. To end on that note, basically, if you look at the zero trust framework, it has, like I said, it requires a shift from who we are, where we are, to who we are, which means it's very much identity centric, but it also means we cannot do it alone. So although we are right at the heart of it, we team up with MDM vendors that look at device posture like MobileIron and JamApp. We partner with the likes of CrowdStrike, who do XDR and endpoint detection. On the IGA front, there's partners like SailPoint. We do identity verification ourselves, but also with help of ID Data Web and stuff like that. Then we look at data discovery, we look at data loss prevention, we look at CASB, we look at privileged account management, and we look at SASE products or CASB products in the perimeter scope as well. So it is very much an ecosystem. I don't think anyone can do zero trust or achieve zero trust on their own or by selecting one single vendor would be great. But it is very much of an ecosystem, and it's not an individual sport, it's a team sport, it's a team effort. But identity is right at the core. And with identity, I mean, of course, Ping identity. So I would like to open up for questions. If there are any questions, feel free to ask now.
Okay, thank you, Roy, for your presentation. I have a question because interesting thoughts about zero trust, but it also means that it requires another way of thinking also within organizations to organize this. Is that correct?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
And how does it deviate with the way organizations are thinking now and they would like to go to zero trust or they need to go to zero trust? Where are the challenges?
Zero trust, like I said, so the challenge starts with the fact that one, you need to change your way of thinking. You need to assume that you have been breached. You need to assume that, everything is suspicious, and you need to start thinking in a way that you re-authenticate or reauthorize every single time. So you keep monitoring. It's like, and it's not something that we do by nature. We as humans, if you go into a bank, you have to show, or maybe you go to work, you flash your ID card and you assume you're safe. Done. Nobody monitors what you do next. So let's say you're a trustworthy employee, you come in, you badge in, you have access, you go inside and you go work. That's what you typically would do and what you typically would expect. It is very much a strange thought that we start monitoring what you do on a day-to-day basis, on an hourly basis, and we start monitoring what you are accessing. So, and that way of thinking, that mindset starts to come in. It's much easier to do digitally, of course, than following people around in the office workspace and looking over the shoulders what they're actually doing. But there's only so much we can do. And then you come into an area where you need multiple tools or multiple safety or security measures to achieve that zero trust without blocking people or restricting people from a solid way of working. Because if you start layering additional security measures on top of each other, it will be a horrible experience and people will, shut down or block completely. And that's not something that you want. So by making use of multiple tools, let's say we know we make use of a CrowdStrike for endpoint detection. We know that the device has not been compromised. We know that it's a safe device. We have that intelligence. Now we can improve that security posture by leveraging that intelligence that we found from a device or from a network and turning that into a positive. So we now know that it's you. It's on your device that you always use. It's during your normal working hours. It's from a network that we've seen before. So why would I want you to re-authenticate at all? Or normal time to re-authenticate is 90 minutes. But because I know all of this and you haven't changed, well, I will give you the liberty to not re-authenticate for a full day. So that is where identity can become enabler for an easy or frictionless way of working.
Okay. And do you also see that you just mentioned enabler, but it's also been seen on the management level or even board level that this really is required? Or do you still think that we need to create the awareness about this important topic?
I definitely see the awareness is growing, but we're not there yet. The problem, I think, is that it is very much a broad definition. So what does zero trust actually mean? How do we, what's the next steps? And it's something that it's a journey. You will not achieve that overnight. You will not achieve it in a year. Even if you do the right things, if you start implementing your identity-centric stuff, it should really be a project. It should be a multi-year project, which has a multi-year budget. And that is where most companies struggle to get the attention of management and to achieve the budget from management. So that is something that we can still help create awareness around. And what I just said, if we can show or demo to people that they can increase their security and achieve security, zero trust security, without impacting the day-to-day work of an employee. In fact, I'm even increasing the productivity. Potential productivity is always dependent on how you want to work. If you walk away, then you walk away. But potentially by just enabling that risk-based authentication, or just not authenticating at all, because we know all the risk signals, we open up time and we can enable employees to work more or faster. And we can leverage, we can make that easy by leveraging FIDO keys. We can make that easy by leveraging biometrics. My MacBook, for instance, has a fingerprint scan. I never, ever put in my password. Well, I just upgraded the latest security patch to Ventura 13.3, and then I have to enter my password. But that's the only time that I actually have to enter my password, because normally I just put my finger on and it's opened and it's secure.
Yeah. Okay, great. So not sure if there are any questions. Some people are listening, some people dialed in later. So not sure, Rui Fiske, maybe you can hear us. I'm not sure if you have any questions.
Yes, thank you very much, Roy. Yes, apologies for being late. We went to the meeting that was in the tickets that we were sent, so that's why we were a bit late. So Roy, obviously, I have to say I have had some experience with Ping from many years ago. Do you also do authorization? I mean, the focus normally has been on authentication, but obviously in your kind of overall schematic, you had authorization. So that was my kind of first question. And if so, what policy expression language are you using for driving the policy decisions? That's the first question. The second one is, one thing also you didn't mention was about metadata referring to the information objects that are being accessed. So you were looking at, obviously, at devices, identities, both human and non-human actors, and actually the resources themselves. But actually there are attributes about the objects that are trying to be accessed. So do you see, well, first of all, do you consider that in your authorization policies, and what do you feel about that? Thank you.
All right, so that's a tough question to answer in a simple way. So yes, we do authorization. Let's tackle that first off. It's mostly based on risk-based authorization. So we leverage the risk signals. We do like consent management, stuff like that. I'd be happy to explain that into more detail, but that is probably more technical than my knowledge allows. But it leverages the risk signals. We do stuff like device posture, IP address, some form of user entity behavior analysis, but we can also leverage data or intelligence from external partners. So if you use like CrowdStrike's, what's called Falcon X database, the Palo Alto wildfire data, that's stuff so we partner with both parties to leverage their intelligence, their data, to make authorization decisions. With respect to full granular detailed metadata, I will not be at liberty, or it's just my skill level does not allow to go that deep, but I hope that kind of answers your question.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Maybe questions from you, Ilkay?
No, thank you. It's all clear.
Yeah. Okay. Great. So, well, one thing, Roy, you mentioned in your beginning of your presentation about a number of factors that are currently there, which can have an influence on how to modernize an IAM legacy system. And one was about skills and resources. And I think at this point in time, I think everyone is looking for really skilled resources, especially within organizations, to meet these challenges that they have, which probably also have a burning on their organization, their teams, to at the other one hand to maintain operational business, but also think about innovations like this. That's, I think, a big challenge for each organization at this moment.
Absolutely, and to that extent, so a legacy development or a custom developed IAM system will be even harder. So the number of resources that have the required knowledge for an older or custom developed system will reach a pension age at a certain point in time, or they might at least fall away, and at that time you are in for quite a challenge. Moving to a more modern or open standards based IAM will start making things easy or easier. It will not resolve the resource gap that we currently have, but there's a lot of people that have a basic understanding of SAML or OAuth or OIDC. So anything that's open standards based will be easier to find knowledge on, at least for people to maintain it. I've seen Oracle coders transition to Java coders. That is a step that a coder can make. Well, in identity world, that is pretty much the same. And I think even to the extent even though there is a distinction between privileged access management and identity governance and access management, we understand each other. So it's just different areas of the user journey, what we cover. But in general terms, in general technology terms or standards terms, that I would be very much at ease talking to a partner who does PAM or a partner who does identity governance, because it's all based on the same language. So as long as we start looking at open standards, I think we are moving in the right direction.
Okay, great. Thank you. So thank you again for your presentation, Roy.
My absolute pleasure.
So we come to the end of this IDnext lunch break. Thank you for attending. This webinar or this lunch break will be shared also online on short notice. And keep an eye on our calendar for next lunch breaks or other events. So thank you and wish you a good day. Bye-bye.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.